buyers and sellers by a landslide, the number one thing that they want in a real estate agent is somebody they can trust.
They want to make sure that they know you can help them get a great deal if they're buying.
Welcome back, real estate agents, to the RMG Agent Podcast. I have the privilege of being your host. My name is Reed Moore. As always, you can go to rmgagentpodcast.com for any of our resources. They're free to you. We want to impact and empower and encourage you in your real estate profession and in your life. Today, we're talking about a really, really important subject when it comes to the way that you interface or interact with your clients, and that is trust. And specifically, we're talking about trust because it's not something you just put on your business card. It's not something you can say, hey, just trust me. You actually have to be able to demonstrate that. And so we're going to have a conversation around the elements of trust. And to do that, I'm going to be able to introduce to you my co-host, who's a very trustworthy individual, Jake Bartlett.
Yeah, I don't know about the trustworthy. That's for you to choose. But I do know that some people choose to trust quickly and some people take a long time to trust. I tend to be on the front end of that. Like I tend to trust until you prove that you aren't trustworthy. And some people aren't that way. So when we talk about trust in real estate, your client's number one need for a real estate agent is they need to trust that person to be able to use them. So why do you think that is?
So it's a great question. I think that, so every year when NAR does their studies, trust, buyers and sellers by a landslide, the number one thing that they want in a real estate agent is somebody they can trust, right? And I think that comes down to when you're doing a real estate transaction, you're not buying something off of Amazon that if you don't like it, it was only $5 and who cares, you throw it away or you send it back. You're dealing with a really significant financial commitment that buyers and sellers are making. And as a result, our finances have a way of opening up the rest of our lives. My experience has been over the years in real estate that when somebody chooses to trust me to sell their house or to work with them to help them find a house or an investment or whatever that looks like, is all of a sudden they become more vulnerable with me. And the state of their marriage is now kind of a conversation, and their state of their finances and parenting and like the list goes on and on. So they open up a lot of their life to you. And I think whether people know that or not, intuitively, there's this sense of, if I trust you with this big part of my life, I'm trusting you with a part of my life. And as a result, trust stands alone as the most important thing that you have to be able to demonstrate in your real estate career.
Yeah, I think that shows up if you've ever had a client that's like a close friend or a family member that doesn't want to use you because they don't want you to know their finances, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's a big one. I think trust is so important in this transaction because for most people, it's the biggest transaction. They want to make sure they won't get screwed. They want to make sure they maximize their dollars, no matter if they're buying or selling. They want to make sure that they know you can help them get a great deal if they're buying.
When we teach trust at RMG, we teach 3 C's. We teach that in order for somebody to have and be growing in trust with you, they need to be able to trust your character. They need to be able to trust your competence. And they need to be able to trust your capacity, like that you actually can help them. But in order to be able to help facilitate growing and building a trust relationship with clients, I learned some stuff out of Henry Cloud's book on trust that he wrote here in the last year or so that I thought was really helpful, specifically for building trust with clients. And I want to jump into that and start talking about it.
Yeah, so one of the first things is understanding. And when we talk about understanding, I think of needs analysis.
Yes.
And that starts with questions.
That's right.
What do you think of in that understanding?
Yeah, so let's just say I'm in a place where I have whatever level of trust this person. So some people are going to be naturally more trusting, some aren't. But I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know that. So if I'm going to demonstrate trust, the very first thing that causes people to start down this path of trust with you is asking themselves this question subconsciously, are you a safe place? Right? And when we walk into a relationship or a situation seeking to understand, and coming from a place of curiosity, right? All these things we always talk about. That actually causes somebody to start moving into a place where you're a trusted resource. Like that's the very first piece, because people want to be known and understood. And when people don't feel like they're listened to and they feel like they are interpreted, it instantly starts breaking down trust. Right. So if you're a real estate professional and you walk into a situation, and let's say you're awesome at what you do and you've been doing it for a long, long time, and somebody says 2 or 3 keywords and you know what that means, like 100%, like you know. Even if you nail it, which there's a good chance you're going to miss it by at least 1 degree, the fact that you interpreted that person instead of just simply listen to them will start eroding trust. And the challenge is that won't necessarily cost you the relationship or cost you the deal. Because if this person's in your network, right? Let's say they are a relative that has chosen to work with you. It doesn't mean they won't work with you, but you have to understand that that is a withdrawal out of the relational bank account when you had the opportunity to make a deposit.
So I look back on some key transactions or key people that I worked with where, they choose not to trust as their default until you earn the trust. And through that correct needs analysis and asking questions and really listening to their answers and going deeper on what's important to them and asking really great questions, there's a physical manifestation of trust that happens.
Sure.
You can watch this really guarded person that sits like this and they're talking to you and they've got their arms crossed and they're just very blunt, and they start to melt away.
Yes.
Until they sit forward, they put their hands in and they're listening to you, and now you have earned their trust.
Yes, people want to be heard, they want to be understood. And it's funny, it's like really out of all the things in real estate, like your market knowledge, your ability to negotiate and all that stuff, yeah, because there are not that many people out there in anybody's life that will stop and deeply listen and seek to understand. Right? Whenever I have a doctor or an attorney I sit down with, and they could be at the top of their game, and there's somebody that stops and deeply listens, even if what I have to say doesn't make any, it's like, well, that's not a good legal argument, right? When I feel like they've listened and I fully expressed like what the situation is, and they've helped me actually process that, I am actually now much more ready to be wrong. Much more ready to listen to their advice simply because they heard me. It's a huge skill.
Yeah, I think of doctors that they sit at the computer, they look at their computer typing, they look up to ask a question, they go back to typing. I genuinely don't trust those people.
Yeah.
Or the doctor that comes and sits face to face with you because you're sick and is listening to you and asking questions, and they really want to understand deeply what you're feeling, yes, what the problem is, what needs to happen before they start plugging in this stuff, right?
Well, and it's interesting because if I have a situation with another professional, like a doctor or an attorney, and I just need to get in and out and I really just need a transaction, let's just say, my wife and I sail sometimes, and so we'll get scopolamine. This thing is how you call it, patches. And I just need my doctor I just need him to give me the patch. Like I can't get him unless it's over the counter. And if I go in, I'm just like, hey, I need a patch. He's like, okay, how many do you need? Okay, cool. Having a great day. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right. But that's transactional. So if I think about what the relationship is in real estate with somebody might be okay with that in a big decision like this, but they're not going to be wowed by that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the description of that doctor visit is designed to be a transactional. Now, if you had went in there, something serious was happening, your body's feeling really weird, and the doctor approached that the same way, like you're not going to trust, and you're probably going to want a second opinion.
That's right. And so as a real estate professional, the first place we start with building trust is understanding.
Yep. Coming from curiosity is a great thought process or mindset when you approach these situations to build trust.
Yeah.
The other portion that we need to talk about is our motive in this situation.
Yes. So here's the thing. The person that's sitting across from you, they, to some extent, know that you are in business to make money, right? So there's not a question of, do you want to serve them and make money? Although a lot of times educating your clients on how you make money is a really important piece because people don't understand that if you don't help them, you don't get paid. Yeah. But when it comes to building trust, this person needs to experience my motive of being them before me, right? That their best interest is genuinely taken into account. And there's a few ways that we do that. One is actually the understanding process. That sets the stage for me to be able to show up in a way that my motives come across as clear and pure for them. Right. And again, it's not my motives are for you and I don't care if I make money. It's my motives are to serve you and put you first so that you have this level of experience. And now you want to reciprocate by me actually having a good experience too. Right. Yeah. That's easy. Where I think we lose our way when it comes to motive is specifically if we are in a hard situation. And this is tough because if the market is tough and if you have gotten behind on your pipeline, all of a sudden you're sitting down with somebody and you listen to understand, well, when you get to motive, right, you really need the sale. You really need the commission. And now this shows up in a lot of ways that can start eroding their emotional connection to you when it comes to your motivation. Because instead of you doing a great job consulting them for what's best for them, which sometimes it's hard. Sometimes what's best for the client is stuff that they don't want to hear. But if I start mixing those hard conversations in with a bunch of other things that actually have kind of my DNA in it and what I need because I have commission breath and I really, really, really need the sale, what ends up happening is I break trust. And if I break trust, I actually start creating the separation that will maybe cause this person to not work with me, right?
Yeah, so I would say that some of this, if you're sitting down at a listing presentation and the client starts to put up some walls when you start talking about your commission, I would say go back. You probably didn't demonstrate that you understood their problem.
Right.
And they don't trust that you're the person that can do the job for them. And they don't trust that your motive is correct. They're starting to put up walls because they want to have the value be equal to the amount that they trust, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when somebody moves into that trusting position, they're trusting that you're going to help them achieve their goals. And even conversations around saying like, no, I don't reduce my commission, right? I charge 10%, I charge 20%, whatever that number is that you charge. The issue is that if I can from a place of understanding and clear motive, articulate to that person, if I back off of what feeds my family, how much more are you going to get the raw end of the stick when it comes to me protecting your money? For me doing the best job for you. So hard conversations don't always like undercut motive. Motive is this weird internal thing that people experience, they sense, right? So if you've ever been around anybody who's an equestrian, they'll say horses sense fear, right? People sense when your motives when your wires are crossed when it comes to your motives. And so when it comes to your motives and building trust, there's the technical skill, right? But honestly, Jake, it's before you even get to the table. It's the fact that you've sat in your car and you've worked through all of your fears and all the other stuff and you put that crap behind. You've created the story in your mind that you need to have, which is that this person gets my best for their sake. And as a result, I'll get paid, right? That's motive.
And you said a few things a few minutes back of making sure that you put them before you, right? And I think if we approach all those situations of what's best for them, and sometimes there's a hard reality that happens when you need a sale and you're faced with a seller that maybe is in a situation where they shouldn't sell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I need this sale, and what's best for them is that they shouldn't sell.
Yes.
And so now you've got this really tough dilemma, but it really shouldn't be, because if you put their interest first, like that's the right thing.
It is. And one of the things we've talked about in past episodes is don't think about the moment, don't think about the year, think about the career. I have sat down across the table from people where I'm in a place where I need a commission, right? I need a paycheck. And it's so clear that this is not a good move for their family. Now, there can be two ways of doing that. One is I can tell them it's not good for their family because that's not the choice I would make. Or I can listen and understand and come to the conclusion that based off of what this person has told me, this is not a good move for their family. what I've had happen as well is having that conversation and having that person say, hey, thank you so much for telling us not to sell our house. Call Sally and call Sam and call so-and-so because they do need your help, right? Wonderful, wonderful lead generation opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you are truly a trustworthy person, those people will send you referrals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about our ability.
Okay, so once I've demonstrated these compassion or these like human relationship type stuff, now I actually have to show up and I have to continue to stay in a trusting space, which starts with these soft skills of helping people come into the conversation, help them not get pushed away. But now I have to show up with my ability. And your ability as a real estate professional is going to vary greatly based off of the number of transactions you do, the amount of skill development you do, the amount of time that you've been in real estate. Like all of those things kind of converge, right? But fundamentally, what people need is not you to be the most technically perfect real estate professional. They need you to have an ability to get them across the finish line of their goals, right?
Yeah, so some of it comes down to empathizing with their situation and helping them through the transaction, even though sometimes they're in a tough spot. And knowing that, when working with buyers, I always had this mantra of like, this is the right thing for them. We're going to help them get to the end, and keys solve a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you can see it when they close on those transactions, those tough real estate transactions where, they needed me and they needed to trust me. And at the end, like there's just this weight that runs off of them and they're just so thankful. And they hug you. These are people that don't come across as huggers, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they get those keys and all else is fine. And I know at that point, if I take care of these people, like they will not only be lifelong clients, but they're going to be people that will talk about me.
Yeah, you had the ability to take them across their personal finish line. So I think a couple ways that we demonstrate ability are really key. So one of the ways that we can demonstrate ability is proactive communication. And specifically, there's a communication pattern that speaks to ability. And that is, I tell somebody what's happening and what to expect next. The insecurity and the erosion of trust that happens with the unknown is profound, right? Yeah. And some people more than others. If they don't know what's next, there's just a lot of insecurity there. So if I am communicating what's happening, hard or not, right? And I'm communicating what's coming up next, hard or not, I have now demonstrated my ability because I'm the Sherpa. I'm taking them to their goal. So if I know enough to know what's happening now and what's happening next, we're in a good spot, right? So that's one way we demonstrate our ability. Number two way we demonstrate our ability is we disclose, right? When in doubt, disclose. There's never an opportunity in real estate where non-disclosure is the right answer. It's just, that's not real. And that erodes trust fast, right? So we communicate proactively what's happening, what's next. We disclose. And the superpower that I learned when it comes to ability is I might not have the technical ability to get somebody through a portion of a transaction, but I have the ability to enlist people with ability. That is the real estate superpower. You are the general. You don't have to know how to operate every piece of equipment on the battlefield. You have to know the people that do. And then I can take that back to my clients and tell them what's happening now with so-and-so and what's happening next with this other person.
Yep. Being the source of the source.
That's right. So if I do those things, I demonstrate ability because they don't care. They don't care about, like if I can show them a doctorate in real estate, and none of that matters, because if I show them technically I can do anything and everything in the entire world of real estate, but I don't communicate what's happening next, that piece of paper will not demonstrate ability.
Yeah, I find that that's a big fear of clients, is just not knowing what's next. And that's a great idea of like, hey, every time I leave you, I'm going to leave you with when the next time I'm going to talk to you, or what's the next thing in the process, or the next person that's going to be calling you. And if you just continue to do that, especially when you're under contract, like you're solving a lot of the fear that could come up, because the fear of unknown is a big one.
It is, absolutely. So we do understanding, motive, keeping our motives in check. We move to ability. And the next one is track record. And this is one that is, if you're new in the industry, you don't have a track record. If you have been around for a long time, you might have a substantial track record, and you have to figure out how to articulate it well.
Yeah, as we go into this new, shifting market and unknowns with what's going to happen with commission, and there's going to be some things that none of us have ever dealt with specifically, but being able to piece together our track records, what we have done, or using borrowed track records from your company or your team or past industries or things like that to be able to demonstrate that track record for people.
Yeah. Go back to one of our older episodes. Actually, I think we were talking about our bloopers and our blunders. One of the things that I think is just critical for track record is how have you handled less than ideal situations in the past? Have you taken it on the chin? Have you stroked a check? Have you learned your lesson? You do that long enough, your track record, not just external to you, but internal to you, it starts to solidify and there's a level of confidence. So I think that that's important. Number two is I think that track record as a conversation from clients typically shows up when they don't think that you feel like you can help them. Right? And there's some reality to that. If you step into maybe like a large commercial lease and you've never done that before, you don't have a track record and you probably don't have any business doing that solo. So there's a few things I think you can do with track record. One is you can borrow somebody else's track record, somebody else who has some sort of a mentoring or guiding relationship with you. You can partner with somebody who has a track record. So let's say you have an outlier, you have a big transaction that is outside of your scope of expertise. Don't be greedy. Bring somebody in that can help walk side by side with you through that transaction, right?
Yeah, so it goes back to that putting the client's interest before yours,
That's right?
Like, don't try to take on more than you should because you don't have the expertise in spite of the client's best interest. That's not the way to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And after you've done this a few times and you've brought other people in, guess what? You now have a track record.
Yep.
And you've now done this a few times. So track record, I think, is important when it comes to that. And it's also important, I think, that people have an idea of your track record. So over the course of time and experience, people will start assuming your track record if you're lead generating. If you're lead generating, you're staying in communication with people and you're building great relationships, people after 2 or 3 or 5 years in the industry, they know that you're the trusted source. They will pick up the phone and call you because they think you might know something about something. And now you help them through a situation and your track record just gets stronger and stronger and stronger in their minds.
Yeah, one of the things that I find super awesome with past clients is that they trust me with all things real estate. So they'll call me with furnace problems, right?
Right.
Instead of just reaching into the phone book and calling, ABC furnace, right? They know that I am a trustworthy source for this.
Right.
And they'll call me.
Yeah. There was an agent I competed with probably 15, 16 years ago. And his way of demonstrating track record with specifically for sale by owners who he listed a lot of their properties was he would have a simple initial conversation with them, right? Asking them what their intent was, what they wanted to do, where they were going next, some basic real estate things. But then what he would do is he would say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm going to call you Wednesday at noon. So you know, and you will receive a call right at noon from me. And so that you know that every time I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. And so he would call them at Wednesday at noon. And if he didn't get in touch with them, he would leave a message saying, hey, I'm going to call you at Friday at 10 a.m. And he would call 2 or 3 times, whether he connected with them or not. A lot of people, by the time he honored his word like 2 or 3 times, they would call him and say, hey, you have a track record of doing what you said you're going to do. Come list our house.
Nice.
Right. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, that is the stupidest thing ever. How come you're listening? And all of a sudden I realized, no, they trust him. They trust him because he just simply said he was going to do something and he did it multiple times. Right.
Another way that's really great to prove your track record is personal stories. So I know in buyer consults or seller consults that I've done in the past, when I come to certain sections of my packet that talks about frequently asked questions or do's and don'ts, and I go through these and I'm like, hey, don't quit your job because you will not close the house. And here's my story about that.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
builds my track record, right? And I've got like 10 of those built through in my process so that I am able to share that track record.
Yeah, there's simple things you can do. Sharing stories is one, previewing properties is another one. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody and the fact that I didn't just have the same information that they had, but I have a track record of knowing the market, right? How much that builds trust and puts people at ease because like, oh, wait a second. I had an agent that sold us our very first home that when we moved down to the Spokane area. And I remember this person had a track record. We had a long relationship. And I remember going up to a house that my wife and I kind of fell in love with, right? We loved it, loved the area. And he said, hey, just so you know, this house with the side of the mountain it's on and the length of this gravel driveway, these are 3 things that are going to show up every year. Talking about like, the ice, the washboarding of the road and a few other things, as well as kind of limited sunshine. He had created a track record specifically with us over the whole time we were looking of asking great questions and knowing what was important to us. And we just moved down from Alaska. So having snow and ice for extra time and having less sunlight because of the place, those were deal breakers. And because we didn't know the area, we wouldn't have considered that, right? So that built a really deep level of trust that we had, that he had established up to that point that led to that moment where trust got even deeper.
Nice. Okay, well, hopefully this was a trustworthy episode. Go kind of summarize a few of the things. Demonstrate your track record. Ask really great questions. Seek to understand them. Mm-hmm. Put them in front of yourself is going to be great ways to demonstrate that trust with people. And so hopefully this has an impact on your real estate career and your life. Will empower you to do more and will encourage you to seek maybe to be a little more trustworthy.
I think it's a great thing, right? If you can do these things to demonstrate trust in your real estate career with clients, it will go a long way for referrals, for growing your business, and honestly for your own confidence.
So check us out, rmgagentpodcast.com, as always, for tools and action guides and all that stuff, as well as check out our next episode, which is going to be mastering the market of the moment.
It's going to be a good one, guys. Thanks for tuning in.